Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, this is like kind of a backstory, I guess. Alright, so I watched like 6 things on YouTube. I was gonna say all I watch are like doll videos and art videos on YouTube, but that's not really true. I watch like doll videos, art videos, political debates, and like true crime videos, which is quite the selection of videos. But yeah, so I have been watching a lot of art videos, and I noticed that a lot of art channels do videos where it's like my magical girl character, like they make a magical girl, and I just think it's so damn cute. So I wanted to make a magical girl doll. For those of you guys who don't know, I don't know if I've mentioned this on my doll videos, but I'm obsessed with Sailor Moon. Like I've always been obsessed with Sailor Moon. It's just been like a constant in my life since I was 5 years old. So I love magical girls, and I have to say, like, if I have any sort of aesthetic, it's probably that. Maybe, possibly, definitely. I just love it. And I do plan to make a Neo Queen Serenity doll at some point, but I just feel like there's lots of Sailor Moon videos on YouTube, so I don't know if anybody even cares if I make that doll. But I want to make that for my own 5-year-old self. I found this Barbie Princess Malucia doll, and for one thing, like, I don't think she looks like a Barbie at all. Like, it's just a really weird, like, this is a Barbie doll. It looks like an Ever After High doll. And also I've just been really into hybrids lately, so I wanted to see what this doll looks like on an Ever After High body. Specifically, I wanted to put her on a Madeline Hatter body because I have like 16 of them. I have so many Madeline Hatters. She comes in every single Ever After High doll lot that I buy, and I buy quite a few of them because I like looking at doll lots online. I also chose Madeline Hatter because her skin tone's like pretty similar to this Malucia doll. Is it just me, or is Madeline's head like rounder than the other Ever After High dolls? I feel like it is. Or maybe it's just because she has like a tinier body or something. I heated up both the heads with a hairdryer so that I could pop them off their bodies. I already cut down Madeline Hatter's neck peg with wire cutters. I had to cut it down because obviously the Malucia head is just like way smaller than Madeline Hatter's. Okay, let's talk about the result of this hybrid. It looks weird. So it looks weird because the neck is just really, really, really long. Yeah. She looked like a giraffe. So at first I thought maybe, oh, and when I pushed it down, by the way, it looks like this. So it just was not working out. At first I thought maybe it's because the Ever After High dolls have this like weird ball at the top of their neck. So I thought maybe if I sand that down, it'll look a little bit more normal, but it didn't. So I was contemplating what to do. And then I thought to myself, we gotta cut her neck down. So I took my rotary tool, I think that's what it's called, and my Dremel, and I cut a chunk off of her neck and made it shorter. To reassemble the neck, I drilled a hole into both sides of the neck, and then I put a wire connecting from one side to the other one. Then I just took some super glue and I glued it back together. Her neck's looking a little busted. It's okay. She's very like that energy of that, like, do you guys know that horror story? I remember reading it when I was a kid where the lady has like a ribbon around her neck, and if she unties it, her head falls off. She's very that energy. But I'm taking epoxy sculpt and I'm just shoving that into the crack, and I'm basically like smushing it as hard as I can so that it's really smooth. Then we're on to the basics of prepping a doll head. So I cut off all of her hair, and then I soaked her head in hot water to soften up the vinyl so I could get like the glue plugs out. I went in through her neck hole with a screwdriver to scrape around so that I could get all that hair loose. And then at first I went in with my needle nose pliers and I tried to take the glue chunks out through the neck hole, but it was just like such a tiny hole and it was like really annoying. So I cut a slit into the back of her head with my utility knife, and it took the glue chunks out through that. I lost footage, but I did sew up the back of her head with a really like big needle and some thread. With acetone, I take her factory paint off. And her sculpt is so cute. Like, I don't understand why Mattel is using such a cute sculpt that's like very not Barbie-esque for like some random ass Malucia doll. Questions. I have questions, Mattel. Also, if you guys look at the character that this doll is supposed to be, this like doll doesn't even look anything like the character. I painted her scalp yellow with acrylic paint to prep her for the reroot. For those of you guys who are maybe new to rerooting, you paint the scalp the color that the hair is going to be so that the hair looks thicker and there's no like gaps in the reroot. The hair I'm using is the Doll Planet's Legoless, and I'm just taking a little tiny bit of that and I'm slipping it onto my reroot tool and then plunging it into the head. To set all that hair in place, I'm taking my Fabri-Tac glue and I'm squeezing that in through the neck hole. I normally let the hair dry for a couple hours and then I boil wash it so that it's not poofy. We're finally onto the face up, so I sprayed the doll 3 times with Mr. Super Clear, waiting 15 minutes between each spray wearing a respirator mask. And then we're gonna get on to drawing. So I always start with the eyes. I sketch them out with a red watercolor pencil because I feel like they're the most important part, and I just really want to nail the shape that I want and make sure that it suits whatever the face sculpt is. I start blushing her face with pink tones, and I basically just blush like all over her face, and it looks a little intense here, I know. Her face was a bit harder than most of the vinyl dolls that I paint, so it was just like taking the color super well, and she looks straight up sunburnt, but I swear it gets dulled down. Just give me a minute, okay? I feel like I mentioned this part in like every single face up video or dollar paint video, but I really like veins, so I add those around the eyes and the forehead, and they're just branch like pencil marks with a very, very light blue pencil. To shade around her features, I'm using browns and purples. I feel like when it comes to shading around the eyes, this brush that I'm using is really important. It's a really small square shaped brush, and I use it kind of like in a stamping motion, and it makes it so that it packs on color really well, but it's also very tiny, so it doesn't add too much pigment around any area. I'll put the exact type of brush it is in the description box if you guys want one. I think it's really cheap. Normally, it's from like one of the cheaper brush sections when I go to Blick. With a super sharp peach watercolor pencil, I color in her waterline. I color her eyes in lavender, but by the end of this face up, they're kind of just blue. I swear it did not occur to me that she is just really looking a bit like Sailor Moon. Whoopsie daisies. Something I've been really liking doing to the lips of my dolls is taking a Q-tip and red pastel and tapping that onto the middle of the upper and lower lip. I just feel like it really gives the lips like a bitten look. I apply white pastel pretty heavily to highlight some areas of the face. It looks very, very intense, but you guys will see in a second when I start doing her eyebrows that once you spray the doll down with MSC, it dulls it down pretty severely. So that's why it looks really intense here, but it doesn't by the time the face up is done. For the brows, I wanted her to have like sort of a sweet, soft expression, so I gave her straight eyebrows. At this stage, I'm starting to add the deeper tones of shading with pastels, as well as the more defined lines with pencils, like darker tone pencils. With a deep red pencil, I begin adding the lines and wrinkles to the lips. I add the lines of hair to her eyebrows with an auburn toned pencil, and her hair is very like warm tone blonde, so I figured that giving her like a warm tone brown for her eyebrows would work out. I wanted her eyebrows to be kind of like softer looking, but I wanted them to be darker than her hair. I didn't want them to be like super light. At this point, I'm basically done with shading, and I did a little bit of highlighting earlier, but I'm going in with the more intense highlights. So I'm going in with a white pencil and I'm highlighting all around the face. To make the whites of the eyes look a little bit more three-dimensional, I take a black pastel on that tiny square brush that I told you guys about earlier, and I'm just tapping that underneath the eyelid, and this just makes it look like the eye has a shadow there, where the eyelid is overlapping with the white of the eye. At this point, y'all know I just doused my dolls in macro Pearl-X pigment. If you haven't tried it, try it. It looks quite good. With a blue Pearl-X pigment, I'm tapping that on top of the black pastel that I put down for the pupil earlier. I have mentioned this before, but I love putting Pearl-X pigment on top of dark things. I think it makes them look even better, and I feel like this effect just makes the eyes look like they have more dimension to them. I'm adding the more intense highlights and definition with paint around the face. So like I'm going in with highlights on the eyes, on the lips, the lashes are getting some definition, the eyebrow hair. We're just going in all the areas. So I feel like a lot of people just use purely pencils, and I think that's great. And I also did that when I first started out. But if you can get the control of a paintbrush, I feel like it just really draws attention to an area, because the paint is always going to be darker and also more like fluid and kind of solid than if you're going in with a pencil, at least in my experience. I know it's hard to get control of paint, and it's also hard to find really tiny brushes. I actually have some listed in the description box if you guys want some recommendations. I'm a bit bummed that I like leaned more into the blue eye color rather than the violet that she originally had, because honestly, like, that violet was it kind of slapped. With a light blue, I add a ring around her eye. This gives it like sort of a halo effect, and it makes the eyes look like they're glowing. At this point, I started adding in the catch lights for some weird reason, which I genuinely don't know why. It's not in the right order. But one of the reasons why I think that watercolor paint is better than acrylic paint for doll face-ups is because I messed up at this stage. In a second, you'll see. And I went in with a Q-tip with a bit of water on it, and I just wiped it away. With acrylic paint, it dries way faster than watercolors. So if you like mess up and you take a second to think about it, like, it's dry, and then you kind of have to like scratch it away, which is just like kind of nerve-wracking when you're working on a face-up and then you're just like trying to scratch paint off. I don't recommend it. We use watercolors. It's also thinner. Watercolors are also thinner than acrylic paint, so sometimes with acrylic paint, like, it can look real chunky and funky, whereas watercolors, I haven't really had that experience. I want the waterline to look wet, so I'm adding dots of highlights of white and rose gold to the waterline. Again, I try to make the whites of the eyes look a little bit more three-dimensional, so I take a light blue watercolor pencil and I'm just shading in around the top and the bottom of the eye. At this point, I decided that I had overworked the eyes way too much. There was just way too many like white highlights going into them and it looked messy, so I stepped away from it, and off camera I added in white highlights in more specific areas, and I just really like the outcome way more. With Vallejo Gloss Varnish, I apply that to the lips. Finally, moving on to the outfit. So I wanted her to have like a is it a onesie? No, a bodysuit. And I've never made a bodysuit before. So I have this Monster High bathing suit. I took it apart to get the pattern, which, by the way, if you guys are just starting out and you have a ton of like Monster High clothes from buying doll lots, this is a really good way to get patterns for things and figure out how they're put together. So I took this and I built a pattern from there. I think magical girls are sort of monochromatic. They don't have like many colors in them. So I wanted my main color to be yellow because I was like, step away from the pink. Don't make another pink doll, all right? And I do really like yellow. So I chose some stretchy yellow fabric. Stretchy fabric is the best, by the way. And I assembled her clothes. The first thing that I did was I sewed her turtleneck on, so that like square of fabric at the top of the bodysuit. I also hemmed the top of it, and then I also hemmed her armholes, her leg holes, and the back of the bodysuit where the clasps will be. I sew the bodysuit together at the shoulders and also where the turtleneck is. I bought this really intense yellow lace, and we're going to be sewing that onto the leg holes and also a bit on the armholes. But for the armholes, I cut the sequin off. I then sewed up the sides. I wanted her to have like a skirt for her butt, so like a skirt that doesn't go all the way around, it's just for her butt. So I gather stitched some of this purple lace. I also decided that purple would be a major color for this doll, so I took some stretchy purple fishnet and I wanted to make her some stockings, so I sewed that all around the sides. Once I was done sewing, I flipped it. I hot glued a bit of yellow ribbon to the top of the stockings. I would normally say sew this, but I couldn't get it to work out, so I hot glued it. I want her to have like a super obnoxious bow on the back of her outfit, so I took the ribbon part of the bow and I sewed 2 pieces together, then I flipped it. I sew a little pocket into the ribbon so that I can stick wire in it so it's posable. Now onto her obnoxiously large bow. So I took the 2 pieces of fabric that I cut out and I sewed them basically together, good side to good side, leaving a little hole so that I could stuffing into it. Stuffing is basically just like the remnants of yarn once you're done brushing it out if you're using yarn for hair. And then I sewed that up. I also put the little like rectangle of fabric around the middle of the bow. I then sewed the bow to the gathered bit of purple lace that's going to go in the back of her bodysuit. This is basically her finished bodysuit and I think it's so cute. I really like it. An element in a lot of magical girl designs that I saw were really cute anime wings. Literally Google cute anime wings and this comes up. So I wanted to incorporate that into my magical girl design. So I basically did what I did with the bow, where I made a little like pillow and I stuffed it. And then I painted the pillow that I made with a little swirl in yellow acrylic paint. Y'all can't tell me this isn't the cutest thing. It's so cute. I want a little like wing pillow. So cute. I sewed her wing pillow to the back of her bodysuit. Fun fact, while I was making this doll, it was really hot in my workroom. So I did a lot of the sewing in my living room where there's an air conditioner. And I was watching Hannibal the show, while sewing this together, just working on something super cutesy while watching. That show is horrific. So gory. I wanted her to have really intense bell sleeves, so I gather stitched a bit of that purple lace and I sewed it to the bottom of the bell sleeve. I then gather stitched the top of the sleeve. I sewed the upper part of the sleeve to the bell sleeve, good side to good side. This is the end result of the sleeve, but I decided it needed more. So we're taking some of this white fabric and I'm basically making a second layer to the sleeve. So I'm pretty much doing the same exact thing. I cut a bell shape and then I am gather stitching this strip of white fabric, sewing it to the bottom of the sleeve, and then gather stitching the top. I sewed it up the side, flipped it, and then sewed it to the outer portion of the sleeve. After like 20 minutes, we're going back to her bodies. So that bit of epoxy sculpt, I painted it with a skin tone shade. I tried my hardest to match the skin tone of the body, and then I blushed the body with the same tones that I used on the face. This is what the body looks like after I'm done blushing it, and I kind of think her stubby little neck is so cute. But I put her head back on her body, and I really, really like the proportions. Let me know what you guys think about it. I don't know, I love this hybrid. Now onto shoes. So I've been like dipping my big toe into making some real simple shoes lately. If you guys don't know, I used to just like purely paint like shoes, like the factory shoes, but I've been making some shoes. And these shoes are basically the same exact shoes as my Lolita doll. So they're just flats, and I am hemming where the foot holes come in, like where you put your foot in, and then I sewed up the back of the shoe. I then took some foam that I traced around the sole of her shoe, and I sewed that good side to the fabric of the shoe. Then I just flipped the shoe. And with that, you have some super simple flats. They're really easy to make, and I mean, they look okay, I think. I also sewed a strap around the opening of the shoe. I wanted her hair to be long, but it was like way too long, so I cut up a big ol' honkin' chunk at the bottom. We start off her hair by braiding 2 pieces on both sides of the front. Something I actually learned from Enchantarium is wrapping like really thin wire around the ends of things to style them instead of using an elastic, because it just is a lot easier and it's way less bulky. To curl her hair, I take a bit of pomade and I smooth that into her hair so that it doesn't have as many flyaways, and then I take a chopstick that I heat up in my hair straightener and I wrap the hair around the chopstick, and it gives you nice little ringlet curls. Fun fact, when I was doing this, I actually dropped the chopstick, and I just like have not been wearing pants lately because it's so hot. TMI, but I caught the chopstick with my thighs and I burnt my legs real bad. So note to self, wear pants while curling doll hair. Moving away from my burnt legs, I painted some little swirls on these white wing shapes that I cut out from foam. I cut the wing shapes out for her hair. I hot glued them to her head. I also hot glued some little gems on there as well. She's a magical girl, so we cannot forget her bows. I hot glued a bow to both of her braids. She got a hot glued bow and gem on her chest as well. The other set of wings that I cut out were for her shoes. She needed even more bows, so I glued some bows onto her sleeves. So this whole doll is basically an ode to Sailor Moon, but as another ode to Sailor Moon, I wanted to put a little star on her forehead. I got these stars from Amazon. They're just like little moons and stars and stuff. They're like nail art gems, which are like really useful, by the way, for doll repainting. Look up like nail art gems and stuff on Amazon. But I attached it to her head with Elmer's glue all. I decided that my favorite weapon that magical girls have are staffs, so I'm going to give her a staff. I picked up some barbecue skewers and I cut them down, and then I have these like glitter stickers, and I basically put a sticker on each side of her staff. I also have, I think this is washi tape, I'm not really sure, but I believe Worlds Within Worlds gave it to me, and it's like butterfly gold washi tape. So I took that and I'm cutting out little butterfly shapes, and I am going to be gluing that to her hair as well as her staff. Continuing with her color scheme, I paint her, the main part of her staff, lavender color. I put a bit of air dry clay at the bottom of her staff and I paint that yellow. I go over the lavender part of the staff with some of my Arteza metallic watercolors, specifically the purple color in the palette, and I also went over the yellow part of the staff, so like mainly the bottom area right there, with metallic gold paint. Then I took a little pearl and I attached it to the bottom of her staff. This is her with all of her accessories, and I just really dig how she turned out. Let me know what you guys think of her down below. I just really love the whole like magical girl aesthetic, and as I mentioned earlier, basically my entire life is inspired by Sailor Moon, and it has been since I was 5 years old, so it's like a lifelong thing. But yeah, I definitely think I'm gonna do a Neo Queen Serenity doll, so let me know if you would be interested in seeing that. Like this video if you like this video, stay safe, subscribe, it makes me happy, and I hope you guys are having a beautiful day. Bye!